Hi there, my name's Kirsten. This is the Paper Knits Podcast, episode number 32. I'm a knitter from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and I really love to knit, and I really love getting to talk about my knitting with you on the internet. Today is my first sit-down podcast, normal one of 2026. I had filmed a everything I knit in 2025, and then the last video that just went up was a tour of all of my sweater quantities of yarn. And so if you haven't seen that, you can check that out, my last video. And that was fun for me, going through all of my bins and just, remembering where I got the yarn from and what I had in mind when I first bought it and what maybe I'm thinking of now. And lots of them have kind of shifted plans over time as I see a new pattern that I like or pair it with a different yarn or whatever. And so I enjoyed looking through all of that. I also made a bundle on Ravelry that has all of the sweater quantities of yarn from my stash. And then I also have one of the different patterns that I am thinking of making. And so that was fun too, to kind of see all of those, see all the patterns all together. I feel like I get to just this one and decide what I want to knit next. Although I do have, I mentioned this I think in that video, but I had some yarn on the way that hadn't arrived yet when I filmed that, and that's here now. And I think that's probably going to be my next cast on, so I will share that with you today too. But mostly I wanted to share my really exciting FO. I have finished my Nightbook sweater. This is a pattern by Unwind Knitwear, and I have loved this sweater since I first saw it. I bought a kit for it from Grenouille Co., which is the same yarn that Unwind Knitwear used for her sample. This is the same colorways as the sample. I just loved it. I wanted that exact sweater, and I cast this on 5 years ago. So it's had a little bit of ups and downs along the way. When I was knitting it at the time, was knitting at a really tight gauge, and it was going to be way too small for me. And I knew that I needed to rip it all out and reknit it. And I didn't want to do that. And so it had sat in a pile for years. And for some reason, this past fall, I was feeling motivated again to pick it up. And I recast it on. I didn't rip out what I had done previously until I needed that yarn. And I just recast it on. And I redone my gauge swatch. And it was really interesting knitting the exact same pattern 5 years apart, of just seeing how much I've grown as a knitter. When I was first knitting that, February 2021, I had been knitting for a few years at that point, but I don't think I had maybe done as that much color work. This is obviously all over color work, and trying to swatch in the round was such a pain in the butt. And the gauge for this pattern is supposed to be 27 stitches and 40 rounds per 4 inches, and I had 36 stitches, and so that's a huge difference. And I'm glad that I stopped it when I did. I had gotten to the sleeve separation, and then I'd started knitting one of the sleeves. I'm so glad that I've picked it back up again. I'm so glad to finally have this sweater in my wardrobe. It literally just came off the blocking mats yesterday. This is my first chance to wear it, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. And so yeah, it all came together. I had, at the time 5 years ago, purchased the kit for size medium, and I'm not a size medium at this time, and so I was worried that I wasn't going to have enough yarn. And so that was kind of in the back of my mind of what happens if I start knitting this sweater again that I love so much and I don't have the yarn anymore. And over the years, I'd tried to, catch one of the updates from the yarn dyer to see if they had the same colorways, and just kind of never bit the bullet about doing that, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, turns out I had enough yarn. I have yarn left over, and I love how the sweater fits. It fits me well. My gauge is still off. I don't understand that, but it all worked out. So this is how much yarn I have left over. I have almost half a skein left of the contrast color, and then a little bit left of the, maybe I don't remember how many grams this is, of the main color. And so obviously I had plenty. In theory, I've knit the size extra large. The gauge is supposed to be 27 stitches. Mine's more 31 stitches. So I I'm just going to measure it real quick because I didn't do that. I checked my gauge pre and post blocking. I didn't measure the circumference of the sweater, and I'm curious, so I'm going to do that right now. So I laid it out on the ground, and I just like did a flat lay measurement and then doubled it. So I got 47.5 inches. Let me double check what it was supposed to be for my size. Okay, so yeah, it was supposed to be 51.5 inches, and mine is 47.5, which is actually the size large measurement. My bust circumference is 44 inches. So maybe 51 inches would have felt like quite big. So maybe it all worked out just fine. I changed my needle size so many times on this sweater. I ended up knitting the color work with a 4mm needle. It just felt wrong to go up more than that. But yeah, I did make quite a few modifications on it as I went along. Not on stitch counts, but my row gauge is also off. In the pattern, it's 40 rounds per 4 inches, and mine was like 28. And so initially I had made the choice to extend the yoke depth. There's different options in the pattern. It's like you can choose this chart or you can choose the slightly longer chart for changing the lengths of like the different motifs and stuff. And so I had done that and then realized, oh, I didn't need to have, like, I shouldn't have done that. My yoke's going to be too long now. And so I split for sleeves a little bit earlier and then ended up changing the motifs on the body a little bit. Well, not changing, just deciding what to knit. And so this section here was supposed to be again after this main panel. And so I opted not to do that and then just went to the optional length chart for the bottom. I ended up doing kind of something similar on the sleeves. Because I had split for sleeves earlier, I had a little chunk here that I had to finish that I had done, after the sleeve split on the yoke. And then it has this really nice pattern down the side of the sleeve. And I just continued that all the way to the cuff. So it's kind of cool because the pattern gives you lots of different options for customizing how you want it to look. I've seen some people do, I'll show you what the back looks like. So it just has this is an all over repeat. And so I've seen some people just do that around the whole body instead of having this panel on the front. I'm going to read what the designer says for the description of the pattern. It says, Nightbook was inspired by a piece of music of the same name by composer Ludovico Einaudi. It's music full of drama, tension, and movement, and the intention behind this design was to capture the essence of Nightbook through the medium of stranded colorwork. The shapes and patterns used throughout this garment were all inspired by the movement, tone, and textures of the music, then arranged in a way that would create a balanced, aesthetically pleasing creation. I had listened to the song, but not recently. I should do that again. Anyways, I appreciate the kind of flexibility in terms of customizing it to your own, fit desires. There's short rows in the back to help with neck shaping. Did I add extra short rows? I don't remember. The pattern calls for twisted rib. That was one of the things I really did not enjoy doing 5 years ago. And so when I cast this on again, I just did plain 1x1. But I also did it from the wrong side. And so the knit stitches that you see on my ribbing was actually my purl. And then when I got to the end of the ribbing at the top, I did a short row and turned back around. And when I did the cuffs and then also the bottom hem, I did a short row and then worked everything from the wrong side because my ribbing is just neater that way. So let's see if I can show that off here. Here's what the ribbing looks like. And there's the inside of my ribbing. It's just like that tension difference, right, between the knits and purls. And probably I could fix that if I focused on it, but that was not the time to do that. And so I just did this hack that I know works for me. So the yarn is 85% merino, 15% nylon. It's very squishy and nice. The yardage on it is 400 meters per 100 grams. And I used 1,654 meters. I used 4 different needle sizes throughout the project. Partly because I just kept changing things as I went. When I was first knitting the top plain section, my gauge was too tight, so I went up, and then I ended up going up another size for my color work, which I usually do anyways. I didn't have the right needle size for doing my cuff ribbing, and so I went down to needle size for that. Yeah, it all kind of figured itself out. Oh yeah, another big change I did is that I added decreases on the sleeves. And so the pattern is written just as straight sleeves with an optional decrease round, just like one round of decreases before a change in the pattern chart. And so I just added decreases down the whole length of the sleeve, just kind of based on vibes. Like I knit a little ways and I was like, I'm going to start decreasing now, and just like marked it on my chart. And so I ended up decreasing like every 8th round. And then I did a rapid decrease right before the cuff. There wasn't a lot of like rhyme or reason to have, I didn't calculate it ahead of time. I just decided I wanted narrower sleeves, and that's what I went with. I knit one sleeve. I was trying to finish this. I gave myself a unreasonable challenge to finish the sleeves in 2 days before the end of the year. So like on December 30th, I was like, I'm going to finish this sweater by the end of the year. I got one of the sleeves done, mostly I think. And then I didn't pick it up for 2 more weeks, and then I finished the other sleeve in 2 days. But I had knit to the end of this zigzag chart. There was a change in chart. I did that for a little while, knit the cuff, whatever, picked up the second sleeve. But I wasn't sure if I really liked it. It looked a little bit unfinished. I didn't take a picture of it before I ripped it out. I don't think. I might have put one on Instagram. If I did, I'll put it up. But it's probably not something that like anybody would notice, but I noticed. And so I changed plans a little bit when I knit the other sleeve and just kept this same chart going longer. And then I knit the sleeve longer too. They were going to be too short, and definitely like grew a little bit with blocking. I almost think the body could be a touch longer. I knit the whole body before I went to do the sleeves. I didn't, again, know how much yarn I was going to have, blah, blah, blah. If I feel like with wearing it that I want it longer, then maybe I'll go back and lengthen the body. But I think like it feels comfortable. Like that's the top of my jeans right here. And so it's not like it's going to be, oh, I have I wove in all my ends, but some of them are a little bit long still. I'll see with wearing it. Like I said, this is my first time wearing it, how the length feels. If I'm feeling like it's just like a little bit too short, we'll see. If I feel like giving it length, because in the pattern, it's supposed to have this section again at the bottom, and I didn't do that because that would have been quite a bit more length. But I kind of wonder if this feels a little bit unbalanced now, having all of this chart above the main section and then not a lot of chart below it. I don't think it bothers me, but again, we'll see as I wear it. I very rarely go back and change things. I'm shocked at myself that I ripped back my sleeve. Like, took out my Italian sewn bind off, ripped back my sleeve, picked up all my little stitches, figured out where I was in the pattern, reknit it. It didn't take me that long, but like there's such a mental block to actually doing that for me. Maybe I will go back and lengthen it, maybe not. But anyways, overall, very happy with how it's fitting. I really love the colors. The yarn is very interesting to knit with. This, the contrast color just has, I don't know what it is about it. I just love it. Grenouille has a very, I think, distinct vibe. And like if you'll have seen their advent calendar from maybe 2024, it's just very dark and moody, and like that's kind of what their vibe is for most of their colors. And the little like speckles and blips on here were just like so interesting. When I was first knitting this 5 years ago, I found it hard to keep track of where I was in the pattern, because every once in a while there'd be a black speckle on the contrast color and it would blend in with the background color, and then I couldn't see where I was in the color work, and I'd get lost, I'd mess up, whatever. And so that was a huge change versus now me picking it up 5 years later and just having that much more experience, especially with color work, of being able to keep track of where I was in the pattern, like night and day difference. When I was knitting it 5 years ago, the charts in the pattern are all a white background with black contrast colors, right? Like that's how normally charts are written. But because the yarn was the inverse of that, so the main color was dark and then the contrast color was light, I had a really hard time figuring out what color I was supposed to be knitting with. And so 5 years ago, I had started remaking the charts in that inverse color And I didn't have to do that this time. I was able to keep track of things. And like, if it started with a white, black, I knew that the white column on the chart meant the main color, which is black. Like I was able to figure that out better. So the knitting experience went much smoother. I'm happy with the fit. The yarn feels very nice. And I love it. So I'm so glad to have this. It's like, this was technically my second FO of 2026. I will show you my first FO. The majority of this was knit in November and December. When did I pick it up again? Okay, November 17th. I finished it January 17th. Had initially cast it on February 17th of 2021. So I love Annoying Knitwear's designs. I've knit one of her other patterns. I'm probably going to rip it out because, again, my gauge was all whack and the fit is not good on it. I don't have enough ease across my shoulders, and so I get the funny like funnel neck thing. It's really tight across my shoulders. It's super annoying to wear. So that's unfortunate because that sweater was a lot of work. But user error because, yeah, sometimes my gauge is just off. So anyways, there's my Nightbook sweater. I love it. This has been destined to be in my sweater collection for a really long time, and I'm so glad that it's finally here. So, okay. Let me tell you about my first FO of 2026. I had so my best friend from high school asked me if I would knit a sweater for her son. He's 2, he's almost 3, and she had seen this sweater. She's not a knitter, but somehow I think on her, maybe from my influence, she had seen a pattern from Knitting for Olive like pop up on her Instagram, and she's like, oh my God, can you make this? And I was like, oh my God, please let me make that. And so it is called the Blue Tit Sweater by Pernille Lawson, and it's an Intarja sweater. Have I shown it on here? I talked about it in Vlogmas. I can't remember now. Doesn't matter. Anyways, here's that sweater. It's really cute. And I wanted to make a little bird toy to go with it because I thought that was cute. And Claire Garland has a pattern for a blue tit bird. And so I knit that. My friend lives out in Vancouver. We never see each other, but she was going to be out here in Alberta in January. And so I was like, okay, like I'd finished the sweater in time and was like, oh, I got to knit this little bird. And so I knit it for like 2 days, and it was like, I didn't weigh my yarn. It's maybe like 10 or 15 grams worth of yarn. Like, it's so tiny. It's so fiddly. And there was a lot of ends, and there was a lot of sewing up, and I had to re-knit a few things and like change a few things because it was kind of lumpy bumpy, and I'm like quite happy with how it turned out. The bird is just like a little bit derpy looking, but now her son has a little sweater and then has a little matching bird, and I think it's just very cute. So I got to see her a couple weeks ago. It was very much like if I was to like show my kids, hey, I knit this sweater for you, put it on, like that wouldn't happen. So I told her, like, you know, if you just need to like sneak it into his closet and like maybe one day he looks at it and wants to try it on, like that's cool. But no, sure enough, later that day, like he put it on, and yeah, it's very cute. So that makes me very happy that I could knit her son something. And then I had the little bird that went with it. My kids thought that it should be attached to the sweater, like I was picturing like a purse charm, but attached to the sweater. But anyway, so yeah, that was my first FO of 2026. This is my second FO. Let me show you what else I've been working on. Here is a Christmas sock, which maybe will be ready for this year's Christmas. I am going to try and knit more socks this year. I really like wearing my hand knitted socks. Everyone should know by now I don't love knitting them. And yes, but this I cast on maybe back in like October or November. And I am knitting it English style. I normally am a continental knitter. And when I was first learning to knit, was following all these tutorials that were all English style knitting, and I could not figure out how to hold the yarn in my hand, and all my stitches were twisted, and you know, tale as old as time, right? And then I discovered, oh, there's another way to hold your yarn. Like you can hold it in your left hand like I had done with crochet, and it clicked, and then that's what I do now. But I wanted to be able to do both if I wanted to. Part of that motivation is because I'm starting to do a little bit of teaching, and lots of people knit English style. I want to have the option of like being proficient enough at knitting with my right hand, like throwing, that I can demonstrate to people if need be. So I am teaching myself to do that by knitting a sock. And I have attempted to do this in the past. When I was knitting my Afric, I tried to knit the ribbing English style and got like a couple rows in, and I was like, screw this. I gave up on that. But I'm happy to say that most of this sock has been knit English style. When I got to the heel flap, my brain could not understand how to purl. I'd done the alternating like 2x2 rib at the top, English style, but I could not figure it out. My hand just like, it was glitching. I couldn't do it. And then that combined with like my brain refusing to understand how heel flap and gusset works. I knit the heel flap and I picked up stitches, and then, I did the heel flap and the heel turn continental. And then when I picked up stitches for the gusset, then I switched back to English style. It's way tighter. I did go up a needle size in anticipation of that, and I cast on more stitches because I just knew that my gauge was going to be tighter. So I normally knit socks on 2mm needles and like 54 stitches. 54, 56, I guess, depending on the pattern. Sometimes that is too loose, and I am just a loose knitter continental. That's another reason why I want to learn English knitting. Anyways, it's not that exciting. It's just a sock, but I'm proud of myself for doing this. It's quite, I should try it on. This is 60 stitches, and it's quite a dense gauge. This is some Ancient Arts, one of their Christmas, I think it's maybe, this one might be Christmas lights, something like that. They're 12 Days of Christmas, I think, a couple years ago. And I had made a pair for my kid. Obviously, he doesn't wear them. Now, next year, like, by next Christmas, hopefully I have a new pair of Christmas socks for myself. Okay. On to something a little bit more exciting. Mostly what I have been knitting on is this. So I am doing a test knit for Lily Kate France. This is called the Arlington cardigan. I have another, this much to go again of the body, and then the ribbing, and then my body will be done. Obviously some sleeves. There's a double knit button band. I have quite a bit more to do. But so far, I'm really enjoying this. I'm using Sandnes Peer Gynt in this really, really dark blue color. So if you watched my yarn tour video, I said that I had bought this yarn initially because I'm making a fisherman sweater for my dad. And this is the yarn I was going to use. And then I decided, just kidding, I don't want to use this yarn. Oh, I know, I'll use it for myself instead. Those were technically two separate decisions. Just like conveniently, then I'm using this yarn for this pattern. So this one you cast on for the back, and then knit and then shape the back using short rows, and then pick up for the fronts and knit down. This is the construction that I talked about in my Everything I Did in 2025 that I don't particularly enjoy. But the shaping on this, it already fitting me better than my Alchemy pullover, and it needs to be blocked. You can see where I turned my short rows, but I think it's gonna sit quite nicely. There's very thoughtful shaping in this pattern. There's waist shaping all the way down the side, and then hip shaping. It's a deep V, and then there's kind of like, she's calling it a notch at the front, which I'm hoping will still look good on a slightly larger body than Lily's. Sometimes when things are like open, it looks like they don't fit you. So I think it'll be okay. I haven't got that part yet. But anyways, yes, fronts are picked up, more short rows, shaping for the underarms. There's this stitch detail down the side, which will be hard to see in my dark yarn. I think that this pattern is supposed to come out at the end of February. I have time, but like I have to knit. I have to get going. The gauge on this is 22 stitches and 32 rows and 4 inches. And Peer Gynt is 90 meters per 50 grams, if I'm remembering correctly, 91 meters. The yarn that Lily's using in her sample is 175 meters per 50 grams. I'm using 2.75 millimeter needles for this. It's a bit dense for the Peer Gynt. I'm liking it. It's a very sturdy fabric. I think that Lily Kate's patterns are known for like looking like they could be ready to wear instead of like a handmade thing. And my hope is that the like quite firm fabric of this will add to that vibe for me, instead of it feeling kind of stiff. And I think with like the really thoughtful fit options in this, like I think it's going to look nice. So, but it's a bit dense, you know? I am on gauge for stitches and rows, which like never happens. And so yes, that is good. With how the shaping works on the body, if your row gauge was off, like you'd have to recalculate like all of that. So yeah, I've just finished the waist shaping. I need to start the hip shaping, and I cannot wait for this to be added to my wardrobe. Very classic navy blue cardigan. Like, how can you go wrong, you know? Hopefully I will have a nice update on that one, my next podcast episode. If not it being finished. We'll see. Depends on when I film next, I guess. So I have another sweaters quantity. This is the Filcolana Arvetta, which is their like sock base, and then Alva, which is 100% alpaca in a charcoal, and then just like a natural white color. And this is going to become a Farnham sweater, which I had seen Stephanie's version from Edible Thoughts makes. I really liked it. She'd done a couple mods to hers. I have like a black and white like long sleeve t-shirt basically like from Old Navy or something. And I just really like the vibe of it. And so I feel like this is going to be like the sweater version of that kind of. A little bit more elevated than just like an Old Navy t-shirt. And I had been trying to decide between holding the sock yarn with mohair versus, or then I was like, ooh, what if I held it with the alpaca? Because I had held my Istex yarn with alpaca for my Riggy's Cardi, and I really liked it. And it's like adds that kind of, you know, a little bit extra fuzziness, softness, but it doesn't have the like halo of mohair. And anyways, I'm looking forward to casting that on. So there's my collection. And then I got some Holst Garn Super Soft in the color Elderberry. And I didn't know how much to buy because I did not do any sort of calculations about it. But my plan is to pair this with this, finally, my cable pillowcase that was going to be a quilt. And I'm going to knit a panel for the back of the pillow on my knitting machine. And I needed a different yarn colored. This is not an exact match, but it's pretty close. I think it's close enough that it'll be fine. I think this will knit really well on my knitting machine. And then I can just finally say that this is done. It's been 3 years of this project. So I had started knitting a back panel and then I wasn't gonna have enough yarn. I had to pivot. So I bought this online, sight unseen. I probably could have gotten a better match color-wise, but it'll be okay. I really like this color actually. I want a sweater in this color because it's really pretty. Okay, next up I have some Durham Natura Ulysse in the color Fig, or however you pronounce that in French. It is not quite the color I thought it was going to be. You probably cannot see that very well on the screen at all. It's purple, leaning gray. And my plan for this was to pair it with some Spin Cycle and some Suri alpaca that I just got and make it tessellated. And then one of my friends duly pointed out to me, like, you don't like knitting mosaic, you shouldn't knit the tessellated then because it's fussy mosaic with 3 balls of yarn. But it's just so nice looking. And so we will see what I end up doing with that. And then I also have another colorway of the Ulysse, and this is Nui. And this is going to be the new yarn for my sweater for my dad. So compared to the Peer Gynt, it is brighter, but not like too bright. It has like a little bit of heathering in it with some gray, which is really nice. So this I'm looking forward to swatching. I've knit with the Gilead, but I haven't knit with the Ulisse. This one's, is it Sport Weight? And I really liked knitting with the Gilead base. And I think that this will be, it's like, it's woolly, but it's light. And now that this is here, I can say, yes, I like this color. I will swatch for it and make some decisions. Yeah, so that's my yarn that arrived. That was my Boxing Day yarn. I would really like to cast on the Farnham right away. And I was thinking like, oh, I finished this sweater. Like I need to cast on another sweater. I have, you know, the Arlington cardigan for the test knit, which I like need to work on. Like, oh, but I can't just have one sweater on the needles. It's like, that's not true. I have 2 other sweaters on my needles. I have my Milester jacket and I have this panel that I was knitting. I'd had this back panel. Did I talk about this? When did I talk about this? I don't remember. And I need to make some math choices about this so I can keep going. And so I don't need to cast on another sweater today. Like just because I finished this one, like I literally have other things on the go that I can do. But after I looked through all of my yarn and like went through my sweater quantities, I'm like, my brain is just like bubbling with ideas. So let's get some other things off the needles first. And the other big thing that I've been working on is, well, this is, I thought there was more in here. This is useless to show you. This is my Taylor Swift blanket that I'm crocheting. Let's find them. Okay, found it. Here are my stacks of squares. This was a helpful project to be working on over Christmas because it didn't take a lot of brain energy and I'm getting way faster at crocheting each square, and it's just like quick, you know, 20 minutes later I have a square finished, move on to the next one. So I've got 1989 done. This one is Evermore. This one's Eras Tour. This one's Debut. And then I've just started Tortured Poets Department. I thought I had... Why am I thinking that I had more than that? Yes, I did have another colorway that I had done. This one's Fearless. I have 3 blankets on the go right now. That's too many blankets on the go. And the only way for me to remedy that is to just like finish a blanket. So I've got this one, I've got my Sweet Shop blanket, and I've got a Brioche Chevron blanket on the go. In my attempts to, that one was an attempt to use up stash. My Sweet Shop has been on the go for a long, long time. But this is nice. It's like if I need a break from knitting, I can pick up crochet. This is what I've been bringing long places. Like if I have to go and sit and wait and do something. That's the other thing that's been keeping me busy. Amidst the horrors. What a tough start to the year. Oh man, yeah. The horrors persist. So we create things. I think that's important. I think sometimes those posts about like art being, or like joy being revolutionary or art being revolutionary, like sometimes feel a little bit trite as you're just like staring at like the horrible things that are happening. And then I'm like, I'm gonna do my knitting. I am trying to fight back against that like default to just like nothing I do matters. I don't matter. The world's going to shit. Everything's falling apart. Like, no. If nothing else, knitting brings a sense of community, and community is one of the ways that we fight fascism. So let's do that. Okay. So hopefully I could give you a 40-minute reprieve from the horrors here. And I always like to hear what everyone else is working on. Please let me know in the comments if you want to. like and subscribe. You can follow me on Instagram. I've got my Instagram and my Ravelry linked in the show notes. I also keep, I put pretty detailed show notes. So if you want to see anything I've talked about, it's there. And yeah, that's all for now. So I'll see you next time. Bye.